Hello guys, this is your friend Dark Fox 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Tsunade's hidden desires for an adult Naruto awakened, the Hokage's forbidden harem that shook the shinobi world part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. The day was scorching with the temperature well beyond that of the worst heat seen in Konoha. All of Konoha's villagers were burning with heat. Barely any work was done as many were sweating or dead with exhaustion. Inside the darkly lit apartment, Naruto Uzumaki awoke to a new day. Sweat stuck to his face with a terrible sense of warmth. Yet for reasons unknown sitting up with this heat he felt wonder for the day. That was until he planted his feet firmly on the floor, and a sharp pain shot up his foot. Cursing out for the world to hear, he looked down finding the 1-inch piece of wood. With a yank he pulled his foot up finding the sharp splinter dug deep in his skin. Fingers gently on the splinter he yanked it free. From that he stood up, grabbed his clothes and left to the only place he could think of. The training grounds. Outside the apartment odors and hums of the village filled the air as he went down the paths. The sun shined down on yet another peaceful morning as the village was abustle, fast around him. Nothing was amiss today, nothing was depraved like any day. The only downside, Naruto was deprived of one mission to occupy his time. And with that, he would visit the training ground and train, and train and train. As he traveled down the path the flower shop came into view with Ino in a beam. "Hey, Naruto." He heard her bright voice opportunely. Always more than pleased to meet with her. Wheeling around he found her with that bright smile. "How's it been, hero?" she asked pressing her hands together at her waist. "Better today. I'm heading to the training ground." "Always training, aren't ya? Can't let a day go without a training session. Maybe I'll join you later. That's if I get done early. I won't be down there for too long. The Hokage asked to meet with me again." "Another day. She asked you again. It's weird." "Huh, maybe some mission." "Yeah, I better get to it." Naruto left for the training grounds. The Hokage Tower. The Hokage sat before her counter, the desk covered with papers, littered with sheets from the numerous villages. Her hand flew over the many papers as she signed with anguish. Her hand successively, writing her name more times than she could think. The same name, even more than she perceived. After another hour of perfidious disgust she massaged her wrist unable to believe the number of papers she had to sign. After hours of this agony she groaned fed up, sitting back in her chair. She looked out the window. Leaning back in her chair reminiscing of battles. Of a time when she fought and felt a sense of life. Now however, meetings were her life and they seemed to swallow her life at that. As she thought of the battles her mind drifted to a different, certain someone. A young boy who clouded her mind for some time, more than she'd like to admit. Naruto Uzumaki, the young brat himself had become an obsession for Tsunade. Since she encountered him at the young age. Even when he was just a loud-mouthed brat she still couldn't help but want him then. An unyielding emotion had engaged her. All-consuming until she grew with an unhealthy obsession for the young boy. Even as far as to go as stalking him. Days spent waiting in the shadows, her body isolated into the shade, sure never to be seen. And every day she was successful. Then he left for 2 years and she missed him with each excruciating day. 2 years appeared to be several. Until when he arrived back, and she found him. Only he had grown into a man, his abs and strong pecs overwhelming, yet under all those petty clothes most days. She couldn't contain herself as she stalked him for days than she cared to admit. She snuck in his house and found him in the shower. Eyes locked on him for hours. Nights she fantasized of him in her dreams. The dreams always perplexing and caused her to desire the feeling of his skin. As she thought of the young blonde she sensed that urge warming up deep inside her. That same urge she felt on a regular basis. With no reason to wait, she proceeded, listening to the door into the hall. No sounds drew near to her and she advanced. Once she was certain no one was nearby, she opened one of the many drawers. Inside there laid a large stack of pictures and she grabbed hold of them. With an enormous grin she looked over at her favorite picture. All smiles on her face, a picture of, from head to toe. Having beforehand Tsunade seized several pictures of him. When the young man was in the hot spring, sure to have all of his impeccable body with close-ups. Gazing over her prize, a perverted smile spread across her lips as she sunk her hand deep down under her pants and undies. Finding her glistening twat, she sunk her fingers deep into her cunt with a smile and a moan erupted. Her fingers sunk profound as the ecstasy hit. Images of Naruto stood, glistening with drops of water covered his strong pecs and ran down his abs. Although all failed in comparison as her eyes gazed at his. Moaning, she increased her motion, pinching her softly. She thought of his fat deep inside her tight. Naruto. Oh, what she would do to have that young stud, her senseless Naruto, wrapping his hands around her. Feeling his fingers sensually push against her skin. She breathed heavily, almost panting with an uncontrolled zeal. Her right hand moved to tweak her nipple, pinching harshly and twisting. Tender warm body, her other hand in her pants began slowly rubbing her. With small motion in circles. She imagined Naruto's tongue deep in her, so far deep. Giving her a flick. Increasing her motion, she bit her lip. The sensations burning through, causing that beautiful crescendo to erupt. Increasing her movement and twisting harshly, Tsunade screamed as she was brought over the edge, her juices spraying in her pants. The intense sensation overwhelmed her as she bit down hard, trying not to scream. After some time she laid back in her chair, a stupid look upon her face as she took a breath with satisfaction. Her hair was a mess, sweat ran down her body and smile plastered on her face. Looking back at the desk, she began rustling through the pictures and stopped when she saw the photo of him with a bright grin. Then she saw someone beside him. It was Anko. Her smile turned to anger as she made a fist looking at the two of them. Why does he have to like that bitch? She was truly jealous of her Junin, the young blonde, always heading out on dates with the older Junin. As of late the two trained together as well. All of this causing Tsunade to grow nervous and worried. She knew what Anko truly wanted and she desired the same as her. He doesn't need some young bitch, who doesn't know anything. He can have an experienced woman myself. As she looked over her photos, the front door swung open, causing Tsunade to jump as on instinct she clutched the photos, squishing them in her drawer, crunching, stuffing them in and shutting the drawer with a slam. Looking up, she found Shizune with another pile of papers blocking her face with the height. Sorry ma'am. Should I come back later? She asked her Hokage. No, just bring the papers and place them there. Tsunade said as the sweat was still apparent with her face bright. And Shizune, make sure to knock next time. Shizune placed the large packet of papers upon the desk with a bang. The papers all together. Shizune smiled sheepishly as she laughed. She watched her Hokage eye twitch as she saw the infinite papers. Not wanting to be around the Hokage, Shizune slowly eased backwards until her back reached the door. So I have a thing. I'll talk to you soon. Shizune reached the door as Tsunade's face turned dark red just in time to slip out the door, then turned and left the room. Once absent, Tsunade ran her hand across her forehead as she let out another breath. Leaning back to her drawer, she pulled out the photos. None were ruined to her bliss. Gazing over, she discerned these weren't enough for her. She needed further exploration, something more. The only thing that would hit that edge. Him. Every fiber of her being desired the young man. She was done with the papers and without a word to anyone set out the window in a flash. Across the air to find her Naruto, jumping through the village. Heading through the forest, she knew where he remained, vexing there so often. Jumping up in a tree, she saw him, training as he did so of often. Laying back on the tree branch with a view, she knew he was just getting started into a routine. He slammed his fists into a bare wooden mannequin, breaking it into pieces. Her eyes traced his shirtless body, taking stock of his muscles and strong pecs. Watching the sweat trail down his body. That smile crept her lips as her eyes grew. After an hour she remained, sweat cover his upper body as he stood pulling his clothes over his body. Tsunade watching as he grabbed his jacket, he left and she followed. He strolled through the village to his destination. Tsunade jumped from rooftops out of sight, her eyes stayed on him. After some time Naruto reached the hot spring. Tsunade smirked, displaying her teeth. Countless times Tsunade found him here and she already distinguished where to head. The profusely perfect place she enjoyed to relieve stress. After a few minutes, once she knew he was in the hot spring, she entered. Into the front door she was greeted to the receptionist. "Oh hello Miss Hokage, the same room for today?" she asked. "Yes please." She headed through the hallway to the room, taking off her clothes gingerly. With each second showing her impeccable body to the air, bare skin. Once she moved into the room. At a moment upon entering she found her enemy. Anko on her knees, against the wall, her eye pressed against a hole. A hole leading into the very hot spring. Naruto remained. "What are you doing?" she asked with a fury, her eye twitching. Anko turned to find her Hokage among her room. They looked, eyes deadlocked, both knowing the other's intentions. An unpleasant frown formed on her face as the air grew thin. Their eyes never fading from the other. "I would ask you the same," Anko declared, not caring, eyes a glint resting on Tsunade. Resting on the bitch herself. "What? Are you deaf? I asked you a question." Tsunade stood straight, her eyes narrow. Anko rose from the ground in her silent wealth, her body not as supple as her superior, but that of a beautiful shapely woman still. "What does it look like, hag?" she shot with her cold exterior she gave. "Or are you too old to see? You're also probably blind, aren't you? So old and frail, you can't hear either. How many times do I have to tell you?" she mocked. Anko struck a chord as she closed the distance, staring the other down. The two women instantly flourished in anger. Their fire searing through their emotion, like a wildfire burning all in its wake. Eyes at the other, a fire ready to burst and burn their skin, leaving no problem or a trace. The two reviled the other would be understatement now that they distinguished what the other wanted. Tsunade's eyebrow twitched. The cold Junin was anything but quiet. Tsunade found a woman with a devious side, a side she loathed with every fiber of her being. While Anko on the other hand grew tired of her Hokage's voice. A nagging she could not permit in her presence, you say it over and over, a broken record that won't shut up. You tell me he is yours. You tell me Naruto is the Hokage's, but whenever I am with him, he never mentions you. And why should he? Why would he want some old hag? Anko mocked, looking over the woman, seeing filth before her. Tsunade stood with a bored expression, unfazed. And you expect me to believe he wants you? A crazed lunatic who enjoys to lick him in the most horrific ways. Anko felt anger slip. And I thought I've told you, you're not permitted to be near him or here. Tsunade declared as she had several times before. Anko looked back and forth, looking for something that was not there. Eyes ran across the walls, then fell back on her Hokage, a perplexed expression graced her face. "Funny, I didn't see your name on him." The purple-haired woman stood before her Hokage, with a light smile. The last thing she was about to do was give up her desire. A desire was all Anko craved now, and this desire was resilient than any before. Tsunade saw no mask anymore, but her opponent and how she manipulated the young man's thoughts. "I'm the Hokage. I have that privilege to keep him for myself. And I know, deep down he only desires me," she told with a confidence only the Hokage held. Anko gave her a coy smile, knowing something Tsunade did not. "You're jealous, aren't you? How pathetic. Coming from the most powerful woman in the world, to cower when another woman wants your man." Tsunade's hands turned into fists, fingers dug into her palms. Half the thought to punch this Junin through the wall was better than utmost. The resentment crept up her skin, anger she knew for a elongated time. Anger and want pervading her heart, driving her over the cliff. Anko could see the anger crept into her veins and relished annoying her counterpart. How sad, the young man doesn't notice you. Is little Tsunade sad he wouldn't want you? That's it, isn't it? Anko declared with a mock. Tsunade sensed the blood boiling with a cruelty and malice. Perhaps she needed to beat her subordinate to a bloody pulp. Blood cascading down her smile as Tsunade brought her fist down was a pronounced thought. A sneer crept her face, enjoying the thought of Anko with blood masking her face. Although that was imagination and she was quickly brought back to reality. Anko continued. Do you really expect he would ever desire you? Anko laughed with a maniacally fervent shake. I know under no circumstances he would ever want a old granny. A young man like him, with all his copious energy, does not need a granny. Anko stood, spread her legs with a grin and her bountiful beauty. Her hand ran up her perfect curves past her slim waist, then her perky. What is essential for him, for the hero, is a young woman like myself. Someone who can keep up with the Jinchuruiki of the leaf. In more ways than one. She purred as her eyes rested on Tsunade with a devious gleam. All this was causing Tsunade to lose control, her eyes a blood fury staring down her Junin. She needed to halt her fists. He would never want you, bitch. She shot her voice low, her body tarnished with a fury Anko saw little of before. The purple-haired Junin pondered this for a moment, then a bright idea erupted. Why don't we see then? She declared as she bumped into her and went past Tsunade, jerking into her shoulder on purpose. Where are you headed? The Hokage asked quickly, her heart beating. The young blonde was never to be anyone's but hers, and she would kill to keep it that way. Anko turned with her famous large grin spread across her face. Look with your eyes. If you can't see, you're blind. Anko said, giving her a gleam. So you will excuse me, I have a young blonde to visit. Tsunade understood, but surely she was all talk. You wouldn't. Watch me. Without another word she disappeared while Tsunade dropped down to her perverted hole and sea. Naruto sat deep in the hot spring, the scorching water slinking up against his skin. Subsequently each day another of training with diverse justice, and another day of intense sweat and dirt. Nothing was similar to the sensation of the hot spring, consequently to the sessions. Naught could break his pleasure now with a mist of delight and peace. That was until the sound of someone derived and rested opposite him. Naruto opened his eyes to an unlikely sight. Greeted to a Anko before him without a single scrape of cloth. Her nipples stung the air with her massive supple, perky and her dangerous curves. His eyes darted over her, then tried to avert, only to think of what he saw and dart again. The thoughts of her ran and stung his mind. All the while the beautiful woman stood proudly without a blush, letting her body be on display. May I join you this evening? She asked with a grin. Of course. She smiled brightly. With a movement she stepped into the small hot spring, displaying her legs to him. Sitting down before him, she kept her above the water, a presentation for her Naruto. Naruto had a hard minute to look somewhere else, but her beautiful nature needs his attention. Anko knew this, pushing her upper body forward for him. The woman's body was too powerful for him not to gaze anywhere but her. Eyes locked on the purple-haired Junin. There is nothing like the hot spring after a long day. She told with an ease, letting her arms extend as if she owned this location and in fact everything. Yeah, it's the best after a extended day of training. Anko smiled. I can see that. A hard day of work, it's nice to have some free time, don't you think? She asked. Oh, yeah, for sure, he replied. Even better when you share it when a friend. And I must say I've enjoyed our time together. She moved closer, sitting beside him. How are things, Naruto? A hero like yourself must get a lot of attention now. Do you have girlfriend yet? Naruto stared, surprised by the question. No, really. A young stud like yourself. As she said this, she moved closer slowly to him, sitting up close. By now his hormones were raging, his throbbing for her attention. What's a young handsome man like you doing without a girl? She asked, edging ever so closer. Her voice wafted to him so gently, sneaking into his bloodstream and ensnaring his senses. She was now beside him. To be honest, I've always found you quite handsome, Naruto. Her eyes rested on his. Can I tell you something, Anko? He asked, his voice low for her. Yes, of course, Naruto. She replied, eager. I always knew you were beautiful. At times during the exams I couldn't help but stare at you. He told, to her astonishment. Oh, ugly me. She knew what she was doing. You're gorgeous. He said, certain. Without a word she moved forward, pressing her lips to his cheek. Their soft slender lips were warm against his skin and stung his cheek with pleasure. She then required more, her heart searing with crazy desire that sent the insane through her heart. A lighting of desire, his alluring eyes, muscles and sweat. He was her morsel and she needed to gobble him up. She moved forward, her lips capturing his without question. Once his lips met hers, she fought back the hunger to pull him, to take him here and now. Like a raging animal she wanted to dominate him, to tame him and make him know she was in control. The raging lust inside her exploded, her tongue mixing with his splashing together was sending her in a frenzy. Hands eagerly clawed him closer to her, her smashing into his pecs. Breathing became rapid as she began to shake a little, her desire in her grasp, her Naruto in her very fingers. Her hands gradually crept up his body, feeling those enticing muscles she knew for so long. Reining her thought. Knowing this was not the time and place, she stained herself and leaned back. Taking a moment to grasp her emotion but also bask in the kiss she desired for so long. There's someone I care for. She told, her fervent desire on full boom. Her heart beating faster. Tsunade still in the other room, watching with a horror. Don't, she thought, eye against the hole. Naruto looked over her with a question. What is it, Anko? He whispered, and her breath cut, being lost in his blue eyes. Only he had this effect on her. I have known for a while, but just saying it's difficult when I'm so much older. But I don't care anymore what others think, I like you. You like me. Yeah, I mean, we spent all this time together and I don't know what to say. Her eyes averting, trying to seem shy. I like you too, Anko. He told, and she grinned with a glint in her eyes of evil Naruto could not catch. For the longest time, I was wondering if you would want to go on a date. His words came forth. Nothing would be better, Anko. Of course. Anko wanted desperately to grin deviously but stained herself and kept her demented mind under a mask. Okay, great. Come to my apartment around 7. She whispered with a purr in his ear. With that she stood from the water with a deceitful smile. Anko went from the hot spring, swaying her for Naruto. Once gone, Naruto leaned back, letting a breath slip his lips. Tsunade, still in the other room, was now trembling, slammed her hand down, the rage coursing like a mad bull. The stone cracked in a million pieces under her strength. That bitch. Trying to take him from me. I can't. She knew what needed to be done. Suddenly a smile crept her lips. Above all else, she finally distinguished what must be done. What she required to do was obvious for so long. To preserve her love from the arms of the woman by any means necessary. A smile grew wider and wider, until it spread across her face. Naruto will have quite the surprise waiting him. With an anger she stood, grabbed her clothes, pulled them on, and with a kick of the door left with a new objective. After another bowl of ramen, Naruto headed home through the streets. Each step up the obscure stairs was another to a fate. A fate that he would never grasp, impending on him, like a shadow in a fog he could not perceive dawning on him. Reaching his apartment with a swift opening of his door, he found the flat equivalent as any other day. The kitchen to his left and the sofa to the right, nothing amiss, everything left where it was. Yet with one single step, only one simple movement was needed. Upon entering with no time to react, something sharp stung his neck. It seethed deep into his veins, spreading. With fury he lashed out, yet that very instant his body became restrained. He fell to his knees as his breath slowed, vision blurred. The world once bright, began to fade out around him with each second, the room vanishing. He retained his sensibleness and tried to break free from the grasp. Focusing, he used his might to break from the clutch that descended him. Yet this felt different, perhaps a genjutsu and resilient. He could do nothing, as well there was a sharp pain coursing through him, breaking him. Looking up, looking for the opponent, he saw a blur of someone before him. A few colors came into vision, but that was all. Frustrating to focus with all his force. Green, and perhaps blonde hair. Then with that, nothing. His vision went dark, eyes lazy, as his face turned blank, falling to the ground with a thud, limp and asleep. It all happened so sudden for Tsunade, she hardly believed it worked with no mishaps. Before her the now limp young man laid silent. Tsunade stood there with a devilish grin, the first phase was finished. Without a want to waste she grabbed his body by the shoulders. Smirking as she rapidly went to work, dragging him over to his bed, her body trembling with absolute glee. After a few minutes she reached her house and she rested him on the bed, facing up. Quickly she pulled off his shirt like some fuming beast, tearing and tossing the shirt aside. In no time she pulled off the rest of his nagging clothes. One at a time until finally she found her prize, his muscles. Without another second her hands like a magnet to something wonderful, eagerly presses to him, feeling his rigid body. She leases out a weary breath, letting out a satisfied laugh, her heart beating with love. Hands plating to his pecs, finally having him in her hands, devouring every instant of time with elation. Goosebumps deliciously ran up and down her body as she began to shake. After years of yearning and waiting she has him, his flesh against her own. The young man she dreamed of was hers, and no one else's. Where he was always meant to be. This wasn't her imagination or some fantasy late in the night. But a true certainty, and what a reality it is. The temperature heated up as Tsunade's entire body quivered, her fingers run up ever ridge and rock-hard part of his body, then his fatherly hair. Hands slowly eased down his body, making sure to feel him all of his unclothed physique. This, she had dreamed of it for too long. Fingertips resting at his boxers. Eyes stare at the cloth, one pull was all that was needed. His boxers, the last piece of clothing. A barrier between her and his. One single scrape she could feel it, lick it and taste it. She felt herself edging closer, a part of her screaming to rip it off. Sweat ran down her forehead, to feel it in her hand. In the end she distinguished waiting would wilt it sweeter. Her hand shot back, she distinguished to delay, to feel it when he is conscious. Steeping away she quickly grabbed what was needed. A few ties of ancient rope and with it tied him to the bedposts. Once he was tied she worked a large chest into the apartment and set the large trunk down. Opening it was full of devices as well as ancient artifacts, she found the artifact she needed. A collar more than 1,000 years old, as old as time to dominate the user and give the master all say. With a grin she turned over to Naruto, the collar in hand. Naruto's vision came into understanding with each passing moment. Eyes flicker with each aching second until the world came to life. The previous thoughts came forth crashing down on him like a hangover. Quickly turning to the side to discover some strange foreign building. The unfamiliar kitchen to his right and sheets under his almost form. What was not similar was the tight feeling on his wrists, ankles and neck. Tugging on his arms he was immobile. Looking to each side he found each wrist tied tightly to the bedpost. Looking down he found dreadful ropes as well on his ankles tied to the bedposts, his dread increasing. If he could see, a dark black collar wrapped around his neck. His dread rose as he felt weaker. Never once did he seem as weak as now. Pulling harsher, the rope dug into the skin. With a closer inspection, it wasn't usual rope but dark laced with a glow. Something was off about it. The instant he was about to speak, another voice shot over the air. Looks like you're having quite some trouble. Naruto became still. He knew that voice. Looking over into the darkness, the time seemed to stretch as a lone person came forth. The shadow was a woman that was easy to perceive. The shadow displaying a pleased Hokage came onward. The air being swallowed around her. Tsunade? He asked, confused. She took several steps forward without a word, swaying like she owned the world, until reaching the bed. Up close, Naruto perceived a dissimilar gleam in her eyes. Approximately sinister, shining in her pupils he never witnessed. Naruto observed as his apprehension increasing with every second. The smile she wore on her face was so unlike her. I'm pleased to see you're finally awake. How are you on this beautiful night? She asked like nothing was wrong. What are you talking about? Untie me, he declared as he pulled on the rope, struggling. No, I don't think I will. But it's okay, my sweet. You are in good hands. She purred as her hand gently ran across his abs. Naruto watched as her eyes looked over his body. She inspected him with her finger running past his lips. He felt like prey. Finally, I have you right where I want you. You can't run. You can't hide. Her eyes rest on his and he found a demon. You are mine. Naruto pulled desperately on the rope. Why are you doing this? Naruto felt sweat run profusely down his body. Tsunade grinned. Come now. After all this time, never once you saw it? She asked. Saw what? Just untie these ropes. Now why would I go and do something like that? You're right where you should be. A grin spread. And why do you think I made you visit so often? Only I wasn't prepared. Finally, when the moment rose, when I knew I would confess, when the day dawned and I would make you mine, that bitch stepped in. She paced away, without a word, slamming her hand down through his table, splitting it half with one swipe. The table fell to the ground. I can't lose you to her, Naruto. She headed back to him as her grip tightened on his arm, her face edged near with a smile. He laid there watching, finding a dissimilar Tsunade, a side he never saw. Can't you see? I need you. And I know you need me. She declared. Still none of it seemed right. His mind tried to find a rational thought. Years Tsunade was a friend and he never saw this madness. Tsunade, I don't understand. Just untie me and we can talk about this. You don't have to understand, honey. All you have to do is stay here. Her hand enfolded around his neck, running against his collar. Do you feel it? Something tugging on your neck? She asked, edging closer, her breath rising with each moment. The insanity increasing. Yeah, it's digging deep. Feels like a damn choker. This caused her to beam. You would be correct. It's a collar, Naruto. You know why. Your days as a bachelor are over, because I'm yours, and you are mine. Her hand ran up his cheek. Do you feel weak? Does every part of your body feel feeble? That collar suppresses that nasty demon of yours. Can't have you punching your way out of anything. She pulled herself up onto the bed and straddled his waist without ever losing a beat. Her curvy body presses against him as she pulls off her shirt, presenting her amazing bosom to him. The largest pair of in the world in full view. Perky with nipples that stung the air. For the split-second rational thought ran from his mind to stare in awe by the beautiful melons that were hers. Only after a moment his mind came back to him. Naruto still saw the Tsunade he knew and not the woman before him. This isn't you and is all wrong, Tsunade. This is some prank, isn't it? He asked, looking to the side, waiting for someone to jump out. Tsunade openly smiled. Prank? I came to reveal you how I feel, and you think so low that I would prank you. This is it for us, hero. Without another word, she can no longer wait another moment. She leaned in without a thought, pressing her lips to his. Naruto's voice is muffled as the woman leans closer, her tongue sneaking into his mouth and dominating his entrance. Her hands pressed to his cheeks holding him, the frantic kiss provides her pure elation, every muscle in her body shaking, every nerve lighting up. Desperately she devours him, her tongue slithering against his own. The air seemed tight as she presses her lips to his, nipping his bottom lip. At this moment her entire body is frenzy, she has him, in every way. He is hers and she can do anything. Her kisses begin to ascend his cheeks and forehead. After a period, leaning back with a grin, Naruto found her eyes dilated, her face contorted into that of a demon. Nothing about her was something he distinguished. And you know what I can do with that fancy collar. She leaned up close, her lips up close to his. Her hot breath against his skin, and then she said it. I command you to kiss me. Kiss me like I'm the love of your life. That instant Naruto's head moved gently against his judgment. Trying to resist was useless as he leaned forward. Every muscle not in control until passionately pressed his lips to hers. Their kiss sent a fever through the Hokage. The kiss was tentative and passionate. Leaning back she grinned madly, eyes filled with lust. Naruto stared at her as panic ran through him. What have you done? Tell me. You want me. What? Tell me that you are mine. With each word he felt his senses amiss. He struggled. Say it. Say it. Her voice grew louder, something erupted in her cold heart. Like before, the power was overcoming his mind and heart. Fighting it with will, it was overcoming him. I want. Naruto staggered the words, trying to lean forward, but be fought. Yes. Tsunade leaned in close, her eyes great. With desire Tsunade bit her lip. He broke through and remained silent. I see you have strength against the power. No matter. After some time the lust will seep through the energy of that collar. In time I will convince you and change your mind. Tsunade descended down his body without a word and ripped his boxers clean off. She shrieked, greeted to his half-limp thick eyes traced the full limp 14 inches up to the engorged head. Up close his was thicker than she could imagine. He could do nothing but lay there for his Hokage. It's massive, Tsunade said with a blush as she looked to Naruto. Tsunade's voice flowed like honey, her cadence always developed into a purr around Naruto. The hero she desired more than her breath. Naruto received her lovely scent yet said nothing. Leaning down she gave him a clear view of her at the neckline, which plunged deep over her amazing cleavage. Naruto tried not to realize how wonderfully framed her incredibly large chest was. You sneaking a peek, dirty boy. She spoke as she brushed her hair back behind her shoulder. He said nothing as her face turned red under his gaze. A smile, she leaned over looking at taking in his now hardening 15-inch, and it's massive. Finally I have you. Now, it's only you and me, beloved. She said gently, leaning back over before Naruto, their faces nearing. Naruto felt her breath on him and was desperately trying not to stare down her shirt to her. Tsunade slowly wrapped her arms around his neck, staring at him. You get flustered so easily, Naruto, she teased, her beautiful face inching closer to his face, her breath on his skin. Just before him he shook his mind from the lust-filled he wanted to drown in, and brought himself to his senses. It was harder than he realized, but after a moment he came to his sense. Stop. No more demands, no more questions. That collar will take hold, if not now, eventually. You are mine. Nothing you will do will change that fact. There is no place for you but here. She stated. Naruto tried to deflect, looking away. Tsunade grabbed him by the chin. You will look at me, or suffer worse than this. Naruto watched, seething. Tsunade didn't respond, lifting his chin and smiled. This love I have for you blossomed so much. She pressed her full lips to his. Tsunade's soft lips tasted sweet as they surprised Naruto. She forced her tongue against his and grabbed the sides of his head. They kissed passionately. It took Naruto a long moment to break away from her. I'm moving the process along, Naruto. We both know you want me, she stated as fact. He knew how much she wanted him and he didn't feel the same. No, I don't want you, Naruto assured. Tsunade saw red. She imminently slapped him across the face. The anger ran and she slapped him again. After a moment she stained her emotion. I'm sorry my sweet, but you can't say such things. Naruto saw her shaking, seeing the different side. Without a word she pressed her body against Naruto. Her warmth spread from her form-fitting clothes to his strong body. She reached a hand up to his face. Naruto, my beloved, we love each other and that's what makes this so much sweeter. She whispered, convinced, her voice with succulent tone. Now remember to keep that mouth from spilling more lies. Just enjoy this with me. Tsunade slid down Naruto's body slowly, allowing her curves to push against every inch of his midsection and against his abs. Her hands followed the places on his body she had just rubbed up against, his tantalizing strong muscles against her fingers. Only her beloved had these muscles that drove her crazy for him. She slid back up his body, tracing his thighs with her fingers. She wanted to feel all of him. Naruto was about to protest when Tsunade pushed her gravity-defying tits right to his groin. Electricity shot up Naruto's body as his penis rested in between two tight lobes, teasing him. Tsunade wrapped her arms behind him and gripped Naruto lower's back. Tsunade rolled her tits as she pressed Naruto into her. Her tits danced in his groin and she felt his penis start harden. Enchanted to feel his tool coax to life, pressing more tightly to him, her tits still rolling over him with serious intent. While trying to persuade himself to pull away, he couldn't help but notice how special the tits on him was. Her tits was a masterpiece. Tsunade tits wasn't just big, it was two massive lobes that bounced wildly when she walked. As she shook it on him, its elasticity went out of control. Her tits rippled and shimmied all over him. I feel you, you don't want me to stop. You want this, Naruto. Tsunade observed, still pushing herself on him, feeling his against her. Tsunade snapped up, and grabbed Naruto's. She pressed his against her large chest as she continued driving her dancing tits on him. Naruto couldn't stop his erection from growing as she squeezed her tits with his big member stuck in between her cheeks. Oh, it's been too much time. I dream about this. I'm so glad to feel it is bigger. Tsunade revealed, feeling the strong, erect member against her tits. Naruto was lost as the warm and curvy body explored him. His large penis was full-mast as Tsunade danced on him, and he could feel her against his. It was not long before his erection tore through her shirt and was strong in the air. Oh yes, Tsunade exclaimed when she felt the thick log. Tsunade swiftly in front of the heroes. His pillar was thicker than any with balls double the size of her fist and she marveled at its 15-inch length. The broad head pulsed angrily and waited, begging to be touched. Tsunade raised a hand to grab the shaft. We shouldn't. Naruto demanded half-heartedly. Stop fooling yourself, Naruto, you have already know the truth. You need me in your life, and I need you. Only you. Always you, and I dreamed of your big. Tsunade said, taking his shaft in her hand. Naruto gasped as she held forcefully to his rock hard and began stroking. Naruto threw his head back as pleasure coursed up his body. He tried to make another protest, even though he knew it would fail. Unable to halt Tsunade from working his. She responded by manipulating his gigantic leathery, clean balls. Naruto could manage no other thought than the heat forming in his lower region. These balls are gigantic, I bet they hold a huge load for your beloved. I know you want to fill me up. You dream of it, you perv. Tsunade guessed, staring up at Naruto with hopeful eyes. She dreadfully wanted to taste his jizz. Naruto became flush and heat swept through his body. The thought of giving his semen to Tsunade as well excited him in a way he did not want to confess. Tsunade lowered her head towards the throbbing penis and Naruto felt her hot breath on his throbbing head. She opened her mouth wide and held it just from reach of his pulsing pole. He hoped he didn't have to beg like before. She smiled up at him and pressed her lips over the enormous and immensely struggled to fit it snugly in her mouth. Naruto body tensed as she gradually pushed inch after inch down her cavity, having as much trouble with it as she did trying to get pregnant from her hero. She tried to take all of his inches of the thickness. Unable to swallow all of him, she worked the much she could. Tsunade stopped when she encased 10 inches. She still hadn't mastered taking Naruto's massive manhood, always trying her best to please the man she loved. Descending, choking and gagging, but still with difficulties, she yearned with every fiber of her being to give him pleasure. With struggle she let out a cough as it gagged her throat, bulging from her cheeks. A combination of lust and the control was driving him, his was nothing but fading in the mist. Looking down, inevitable, no longer wanting to delay. Already he was weak, wanting this he knew. He wanted Tsunade. A trance of ecstasy ran through Naruto. With each second the collar was taking hold of him as well, the lust bubbling to the surface, wrapping his mind as so. With each stroke of his strength faded and his lust ran through his heart. Until finally it broke. Looking down he watched her, anticipating. Your throat feels incredible. Naruto finally admitted, his only barriers falling. Her warm mouth struggled, retreated down the length of his shaft, taking him and halted at his engorged head. With a grin she kissed the sweetly. Naruto made a small noise as she teased it with her tongue, giving it sensual licks. Before he tried to shove his hips forward, Tsunade worked her way back down his penis, sucking hard. The pleasure shot through Naruto like a rocket, her small mouth trying and failing to encase all of him. That feels amazing, Naruto confessed, his penis becoming even harder. Still Tsunade pushed her stuffed mouth down the rigid as far as possible in it with her throat. The process causing her eyes to turn red as she punished herself, the huge head punching her. Tears rolled down her face as she refused to stop drooling on the massive mast. Her spit covering his as she worked it. After a few minutes she let herself pick up speed, back and forth, the sounds of her gauging filling the room. When Naruto felt she had choked herself suitably, she swooped under the rigid pole and enveloped a huge testicle in her mouth. Naruto was ecstatic, her eyes met his as her hand wrapped around his twitching member. Her hand reached up and stoked him with a hast. With her mouth working his balls and on tandem with a blur. For an hour she worked him in every fashion, causing Naruto to totter on the edge. He felt himself nearing. I can't hold my load for much longer, that feels too good. He warned. Tsunade stroked his shaft as she migrated to the both of his large testicles, sucking with predatory intent. Naruto balls tightened, his manhood swelled, knees locked, and he prepared to unleash his pent-up load. With that said she worked faster. After several moments of her face being a blur, his swelled. I'm Goana-kun, Naruto shouted, crossing the cliff of pleasure. Anticipating his release with excitement, Tsunade broke the airtight seal on his ball sack. She engulfed his concrete and allowed it to push into the depths of her throat. Hoping to swallow every last gulp of Naruto's spunk. Its vastness was hard to contain, yet she grabbed hold of the bed to ensure she kept it encased. Swallow it all down, Naruto demanded, firing his first blast of thick cum. Naruto gelatinous load cannoned down Tsunade's throat, instantly causing her to be caught off guard, filling her full. She gagged and choked, filling her with the thick tasty jizz. Tsunade gripped tightly to the bed, forcing her body to accept the treat. The treat she dreamed of. The second detonation of warm and sweet cum was larger than the first, and it tunneled through to Tsunade's stomach, filling her. Choking on the thick jizz, she tried desperately to gulp it down with trouble. Her eyes grew wide as the cum already caused her cheeks to bulge. Wave after wave continued to pummel into the seductress, causing her great pain and pleasure. Unable to take another gulp, she retreated only to be blasted in the face with the thick globes of semen. It seemed like minutes before Naruto stopped shooting sperm onto her and into her hair. Had the load saved up for me. How nice. Tsunade gulped the last of his delicious nectar with her finger and leaned back, wrapping her mouth around him, and swallowed his. With the delicious down in her stomach slid off his member with a loud popping sound to still find another blast covering her face in the thick treat. She looked up at the hero with a satisfied smile. I want you. She saw the collar was finally having the effect she desired. He was hers now. It was time to test to the extent how much the collar had a hold on his mind. I knew you would come for me. You can't help but love my hot and wet sucking, can you? She asked rhetorically. I am unlike any other. I will do anything for you, beloved, and you for me, the same, she declared. The temptress rose slowly, pushing her curves against Naruto as she did. Kneeling, she found he was strong and as hard as a diamond. Tsunade backed away only a few inches and tugged at the low-cut opening of her shirt. Oh, I do want to let you witness these big tits so badly, Naruto, but I just can't yet. She teased, pushing her together enticingly, testing the waters. Naruto was entranced by them. Why? I've done what you want of me. Naruto asked, his resolve nothing but shambles. Even though I know you loved shooting your load down my throat, even though I know you want to see these plump, even though I know how much you love me, I still haven't heard you admit it. So tell me, do you want me, my beloved? Tsunade demanded. Naruto could no longer deny what Tsunade wanted him to admit. He surrendered to her. I want your body. I want it so badly. The lies I tell you were false. I have always wanted you. He said, his anticipation growing. He would have said anything. You don't care for that Pinkett? She questioned sweetly. I no longer care. Let me see those beautiful tits. He begged. With her victory assured, she smiled and pulled down her tight outfit and threw it down on the ground. Naruto inhaled loudly when he saw her beautiful. With Tsunade's chest freed from the jail that held it, she ran her hands over the tremendous spheres. Her skin was silky, and her small, rosy nipples sat flawlessly in the middle of her pillows. The bountiful rested high and proud on Tsunade, and she stuck her chest out to display them pleasingly. Naruto guessed they were much larger than any. She knew she was in control. Leaning forward, she unhooked the wrist's cuffs. Naruto was free, yet his mind warped. He felt lust in control. Go ahead, you have been a good boy, seize them. I know you desire beyond anything to squeeze my big. Tsunade urged. Without a word, Naruto hands stretched towards the chest globes he had eyed and sunk his fingers into the divinely soft flesh. The suppleness of her mashed into his palms, and he felt her hard nipples dig into his palms. He felt he could play with these amazing tits for the rest of time, and he would gladly die doing it. His kneading was intense as he lost himself in the globes of perfection. Tsunade cooed softly as she allowed the man to work her large. I never knew how much you loved me. Someone so committed for fighting for good shouldn't be like massaging these tits so much. Tsunade lectured, her successful seduction making her hot. Naruto lifting the undersides of her bags and taking turns meeting his lips to her honeyed nipples. Each nipple was rosy perfection, blessed with natural sweetness. He sucked on them with a hunger intent, causing Tsunade threw her head back as her were sucked. That's it. Give in. Admit you want me. Tell me the truth that you have always wanted me. Tsunade felt intense pings of arousal shooting up her spine from the only man she ever loved and the only man she desired. While Naruto was lost as before, yet right now he had no control. Now, although he felt the ecstasy course through and wanted to bask in it. At this point he felt he would do anything for her. Your taste like strawberries. I love it. Naruto stopped sucking for a second to say. Tsunade was so happy at that instant she smiled wildly. Knowing she needed to give him a present, she grabbed his head and pushed his head in between her chest and wiggled her in his face. Smacking against his face, her slapped his cheeks with the softness. Naruto was in bliss at moment. You love them so much. You want to watch them bounce as you pound my oh so snug? She asked with a knowing smile. Naruto paused to feel the exceedingly soft fun bags brush against and hit his face. The warmth and texture was perfect and his erection was painfully throbbing for her. The thought of entering her overtook him. Yes, I want to you, he said, his voice muffled by the huge covering his head. Tsunade pulled away from Naruto swiftly, prompting a moan from the man. Yes, of course I knew you did. I know what you wish for Naruto. I know it well, she responded. Naruto noticed her tight and fit stomach, and toned legs as she removed her clothes. But his favorite part of her full reveal was the beautifully shaped, pink Tsunade had. The small crevice was glistening, sopping wet from anticipation. Without thought and no longer able to contain her attraction, Tsunade darted toward Naruto without a word and hovered above him. The thick head of his shaft rested at the entrance of Tsunade's crevice, rubbing against her. She bit her lip as she shook violently, letting out a scream. The warmth coming from her was full of desire and tempting promise. His much larger body under her as she stared into his eyes. Her eyes he knew so well. I want to feel you inside me, she uttered. He surrendered. She smiled brightly as her hand pressed to his chin. My beloved, I always want this. Leaning forward, their kiss was gentle as she smiled warmly. Feeling the woman when he first met a kind woman to only find the insanity. Never betray me again. Love me. Her voice was soft like a woman he first met. He leaned forward, kissing her deeply, causing her to feel the same ecstasy, wanting it so badly now. Drive it in my cunt. Drive it in my cunt now, the temptress ordered. Naruto had no time to think. He immediately followed the order without question. Naruto, with his force behind his hips, drove his huge into the warm depths of the Hokage. Punching into the depths so deep she lost her breath for a moment. The destroyed her cunt unlike before. His shaft filling her, causing her to scream. I have never had a this big. Only you, Naruto. This is my penis, my beloved. She yelled, as Naruto's thick penis reached her cervix, stretching her yonder. Naruto thrust into his cutie with intensity. Her warm walls hugged him and tried to accept his thick with struggle. Building inside Naruto was frustration, fury, and bliss instantaneously as he didn't think anymore, trying to fit himself inside of her. The tight walls suffocated his shaft pleasingly, causing Tsunade some discomfort and pain. Tsunade screamed and screamed as Naruto yelled at the woman he was presently deep inside his thrust with fluidity. His mind on her. This is so good. I can't stop your hot cunt. You forced me to stick my in your unprotected, Tsunade. Naruto couldn't stop himself, letting the beast take hold again, pounding himself into the woman. Into a abyss, his thrusts now a blur as her bounced wildly. With one final push, one powerful thrust, he burst through her cervix, causing Tsunade's head to shoot back and to scream as her tightened around him. While staring into the ceiling, her orgasm surged through her unlike ever before. Juices coating his as her hips rode him. Unlike ever before, the pain was too much to bear and she screamed in unbelievable pain. Naruto still her. For a time she shrieked in delight with throbbing sweetness. After a minute, until it subsided. After a minute of the best moment of her life, her orgasm waned. Her body fell forward and remained limp against him. Body resting against his hard pecs, she moaned. Naruto was still pumping her the entire time as she felt his rock slam against the back of her womb, causing her to grit her teeth, realizing how much she needed to be better than anyone. Throwing her body up, she moved her body back and forth with him. Oh yes, I'm sure I forced you to betray everything. My tits are just too big and soft. My is just too round and flawless. You had no choice but to pound my tight, wet snatch. Tsunade mocked, grinding her hips in rhythm to Naruto's thrusts. Naruto pawed at Tsunade's enormous as they fluidly bounced back and forth. He needed the soft pillows, losing himself in the perfect texture of her melons. Naruto leaned down to suck on her delicious nipples, wrapping his lips around her nipple. Oh my beloved, you love it. You love thrashing my while licking at my big tits. Tsunade observed, her pleasure building inside her again. Naruto increased the speed he pounded Tsunade. Her eyes grew wide as tears ran down her face. For a half an hour he continued his her to another plane. Her hands clawed at his chest, causing him to grunt, his penis swelling inside her. Naruto was nearing his climax, and Tsunade knew her lover was going to blow. Is my snug snatch too much to handle? Are those heavy balls going to pump load after load of potent jizz to fill my womb? Give me what I wish, my hero. Tsunade hoped. Desperately hoped, wrapping her legs around Naruto. You're so tight. This perfect cunt, he accused, teetering on the edge of his release, his speed nothing but a blur. His heavy balls slapping against her. I'm ready. I'm ready to carry your seed. I know you want me. Tsunade prepared, her pleasure reaching the precipice like nothing else on this planet. I'll fill you to the brim, Naruto stated, pushing deep into her repeatedly. If you are so dedicated, then me full. Tsunade dared, releasing leg hold. She wanted no force for his choice to give her what she desired above anything on this planet. Naruto was free to retreat. He was able to pull out from the heavenly crevice. Naruto could have stopped his violent pounding. He was capable of not coming inside Tsunade's fertile womb and impregnating her. But he did it nevertheless. I can't halt. I'm coming, he hollered, his jubilation coursing through him. I'm goanna orgasm too, she screamed, her toes curling as her climax exploded inside her and her senses turned up as she screamed. Please impregnate me, she thought. She felt her body dissolve to pieces, her every muscle shook as her voice screeched into the air. Naruto cannoned his first explosion of jizz into Tsunade, his head pushed right into her womb, filling her to the rim. Tsunade yelled and involuntarily rubbed her against his pelvis. Naruto fired another load of thick, potent semen into the fertile woman, the cum filling her and pouring onto the mattress. He shot loads larger than he ever had before, coating the inside of Tsunade's womb with sperm. She bucked her hips below him as sweat ran down her body. Never did her orgasm seem to halt, she only rode it harder. For minutes he lost count of how many times he blasted spunk into his lover. As he shot his last explosion of jizz, Tsunade came down from her intense climax. Both breathed heavily, fully satisfied. I knew you could do it. I knew you could, me full of your seed, Tsunade said, biting the lobe of Naruto's ear. Then leaned to him and kissed him angrily, wrapping her arms around him. He kissed her as she moaned loudly. Please, I want more of you, she said frantically. Naruto said nothing in response. Her and he loved doing it. The two stayed entangled for a long moment, Tsunade ensuring her womb would be fertilized. When she felt it was certain, she scooted off Naruto's penis. Not letting this end, Tsunade flipped her lovely form and steadied on all fours. Her delicious rear end stuck high in the air, and she swung her beautiful hair to one side. She gave the two round lumps a few shakes, and their fluid motion mesmerized Naruto. You did the right thing. It's impossible to not want your beloved. It's impossible to not want to feel the inside of my vagina from behind, Tsunade assured, pleased with her new offer. Naruto became wide-eyed. The lust finally fading as well, the power went with it. His sense came back as he realized what he had done. The air seemed to crash as he stared at her, his sense back. Anko sat in her living room, dwindling her thumb, in nothing but panties. What is taking him? Currently, with a soda in hand, she tipped it back, letting the contents fill her mouth. With several thoughts, then it came, so clear. The soda was crushed in her hand as she flew out of the building. Come here, babe, Tsunade told around. She spread her legs and bent, her hands on the wall, displaying her for him. Come and me. He stood behind her, his pressed to her. Tsunade said nothing more. Instead, she stared down at Naruto's as it stuck up from between his legs, casting a shadow over her chest, and while breathing heavily, it throbbed for her. She brought her hand and grabbed his. With a satisfied sigh, she pressed the fat, purple against her dripping snatch, splaying her plump labia apart as she tried to insert it. Her satisfied sigh was quickly replaced with a scream of discomfort. Her snatch was being stretched wide. Again, the sight was something she never witnessed. Tsunade's legs trembled and the rest of her body shuddered, which did interesting things to her chest. Naruto was fearful that she was in pain and would fall, quickly grabbed her broad hips. He knew something was wrong and did not want to hurt her. When Tsunade's warm, slick juices ran down his monstrous shaft, however, he pressed deeper. No matter how many times she felt him, it never changed. After a few moments of getting used to his size, Tsunade released another sigh of satisfaction. She threw her head over her shoulder. Me. He pushed forward, further into her. Gradually but surely another thick veiny inch disappeared into the blonde's pink depths, and her body continued to twitch and squirm in pleasure. Although it was clear by now that Tsunade was still feeling pain, Naruto still held on to her hips, moving with methodical thrusts as the Tsunade winced every now and then. So full. Tsunade moaned after a while, rubbing her stomach. It was showing a tube-like bulge, despite the fact that several inches of Naruto's still remained outside of her twitching quim. How did you manage to stuff so much of it inside me? Tsunade asked, more to herself than Naruto, as she reached out and stroked part of Naruto's shaft, amazed by the girth. He thrusted gradually with effort into it as he gently slid back and forth with a rhythmic thrusts. He grabbed her, his feet spread apart, and thirsted with all the furious intent he had deep inside of him, that beast, his stretching her. She screeched in pain. There you go. She whimsically purred, shooting over her shoulder. He thirsted into her again with power, the wet slap filling the room. Tsunade grumbled something under her breath, but despite her apparent anger at Naruto, began to move her hips as the flow of her juices increased. In only a few moments, loud, wet sucking sounds echoed through the room as Naruto's body was a blur and Tsunade's rode his monstrous pull while her clear, orgasmic juices jetted from her plump muff with each thrust. Naruto himself was moving with speeds in tandem with the Tsunade, while holding on to her broad hips as if his life depended on it. It had only been a few minutes since the young man had grasped her from behind, but Naruto's groin and part of his stomach were already shining with Tsunade's juices. When he looked up, he noticed the blissful expression on the Tsunade's face, instead of the livid, almost injured, expression she had shown previously. Apparently what they were doing helped her get whatever had been troubling her out of her system, like she asked Naruto. That or she was simply enjoying the way in which they did it. His thrusts were now becoming powerful, slamming into her. After a few moments, Tsunade stopped moving completely and started gasping for air. At first, Naruto thought that something was wrong with her. But when her sopping slit tightened around his member and refused to let go, he realized she had hit a big orgasm. She arched her back and her body twitched, making her jiggle pleasantly as she continued to gasp for air while her head stared at the ceiling. He felt her tight around him, trying to milk him as she let out several screams. Although a part of him knew this was what she demanded, Naruto still a blur. She had been coating his member and stomach with her orgasmic fluids for a while now. Tsunade smiled impishly, bringing her hips back ready for his thrusts. Oh yes, Naruto, me like I'm your bitch. She screamed, tears in her eyes, absolutely loving this. Naruto her to the pleasure high she never reached before. This only made him go mad for her, his hips thrusting madly into her with no rhyme or reason, just pure lust. Sweat covered their bodies as Naruto lost control, her with a blur, trying desperately to her to oblivion. She honestly thought she was going to pass out. At the very least, her legs were begging to feel like jelly. In fact, every part of her body was beginning to ache. After half an hour of Naruto her, he felt his swell nearing his imminent release. Tsunade. He gasped, as he didn't stop his mad thrusts. Yes? She asked as her tongue was currently lolled out of her mouth. Tsunade, I'm Goana-kun, he stated. Do it, Naruto, make me your baby mama, Naruto, give me you cum and make me pregnant with your thick spunk. She screamed. Hearing this turned him on. In no time his swelled, he didn't know why he did it, but he couldn't help it. Leaning forward, he planted his lips to hers, kissing her passionately as he still pounded her. Tsunade screamed in his mouth as her tightened on his, her hips bucked as she came all over his, her juices dripping down. Just as she came, he fired his first thick hot wad of jizz directly into her womb, hoping his cum would get her pregnant. His blasts of cum were massive and hot, filling her into no time. Her womb was overflowing with his cum dripping down. Several of the sperm were on a mission, finding their way to her eggs, getting her what she wanted so badly from her Naruto. After a minute, Naruto fired his last blast into her. He and Tsunade basked in the glow of their orgasms. He looked at what was the goddess before him, and again he couldn't help himself, his still hard. "Oh my, you're such a horny boy, aren't you?" She giggled as Naruto was desperately sucking on her. He leaned back, staring at her. Tsunade stood there for a moment, relishing the image of the still erect Naruto before her. Those years she remembered dreaming of Naruto. "You have no idea how long I've wanted you," she told him. Tsunade was no woman to wait. "I know what you want," he said, and without a word he dropped his face and forced himself into her twat. "Oh," she with her legendary bright grin. Feeling her cunt turn into a waterfall and leak out. Waiting for his cute face under her. "I'm going to eat you out," he told. Her breaths were hard and rapid, finally having her desire. She felt his face slide under her sopping cunt and she gave a small gasp of surprise. She moved her around, settling herself a little more comfortably, her hands on his head without crushing him, her movements delicate and controlled. He breathed in deeply, the muskier scent of her juices filling his nose. He started licking her cunt, cleaning off her juices from her and swallowing them down. He drank her nectar eagerly, enjoying every beat and light kiss he placed on her wet hole. Tsunade felt a ping of bliss. Tsunade's cunt dripped more juices down on him, turning his face shiny and gleaming. She groaned and shook on top of him, wondering what his tongue would be like buried deep in her hole. Perhaps she would never let him come out. She felt him give her a delicate lick across her lips, then a gentle kiss against her. And finally he dived right inside, pushing his wet tongue into her needy little hole. She heard him sniffing her moist hole and drenched lips as his tongue delved in. A moan of ecstasy sounded as his tongue licked along her slit and the petals of her love flower, cleaning up all the mess her juices were making. Tsunade gave a sharp cry and shivered on top of him when his tongue speared her depths, getting so deep into her wet hole she nearly passed out. That was a sensation which would stay with her forever, and she would not let it go to waste. "Don't stop, babe. Don't you ever stop, you're so good." She started humping his face, using one of her hands to press his mouth against her cunt and encouraging him to eat her out better. He grabbed her large with both hands and kept using his tongue inside her, eating her out with amazing skill. As he sucked on her lips, his tongue trailing along the slit as to keep collecting her sweet dew, then shoving it into her to deposit it in there and then come back for more. She bounced her hips up and down on his face, being very careful not to hurt him as he licked her to her first orgasm. As he worked her, his hands moved, pinching her. In no time whatsoever Naruto brought her to a honeyed orgasm, as the feeling crept on her. It was even sooner than she expected, as nothing compared to such bliss before. Her orgasm denoted with a shriek. She screamed as she started spurting all over his face, her cunt like a geyser. Eyes crossed as she sprayed hot juices all over him, humping his face harder than ever, her gushing uncontrollably. Surprisingly, this had the effect of enhancing her and getting her orgasm to grow larger. This orgasm was all-consuming, every fiber lit up and Tsunade's eyes rolled into the back of her head. Going on and on, she felt drool run down her lips, her body trembling, pressing Naruto into her crotch. After a time she stumbled back satisfied and needed a moment. It was like she came down from cloud 9. Having difficulty trying to properly think straight. "That was amazing, I cleared my schedule, we will be here all day." Gazing down she saw Naruto's 15-inch horse begging to be touched, throbbing for her with pre-jizz dripping from the tip. After hours of lustful, Naruto felt he needed more. Before Tsunade could utter another word, a simple sentence to slip into the air, the door burst open. Before either moved, Naruto saw a flash, the Hokage was kicked in the stomach. Her breath was lost as she was sent flying from the bed and through the room, sending her to the other side. Ending up to crash into the wall, portions of the plaster crumbled from the sheer force as the blonde-haired woman fell and stood back up, her eyes filled with malice. At that instant before the Hokage could make a move of her own, Anko flashed to her and acquired a hold. Apprehended her by the throat, her fingers digging deeply into her skin. With her arm tightly extended, she leaned in. I told you already, Granny, he's mine. Get that through your thick skull, or do I need to bash it open for you? Tsunade looked down at the woman, and simply smiled. No, you won't. And he's not. Tsunade leaned forward and pressed her feet firmly to the wall. With power pushing headlong, sending power through her body, and with it the two fell forward to the ground. The floor rose up to meet them. Anko's body slammed against the floor, losing her grasp. Now with Tsunade on top of her. Without a moment to give her opponent a chance, she grabbed her joinin by the cuff and rose with her in hand. With ease she lifted the woman off the ground, power surging through her veins. Power coursing through her veins, she brought the purple-haired woman over her head and back down into a table, causing the wood to splinter under the weight and break into pieces with the purple-hair woman in the tatters. At that moment Naruto watched, his Hokage preoccupied. He tried to lean forward. Everything a blur of motion, his mind still impaired, but he fought it. He knew he needed to wake from a slumber of restraint to help her. For a minute he focused his energy and what little control he attained, trying desperately to contest this feeling. He sensed as if he was vexing to break it from his subconscious. Over a period his awareness came to see no truth, only he saw lust that was fallen before him. The sounds of punches and swears sounded. Wet meaty punches flew off in the foreground as Naruto worked the clasp with resolve. The two moved through the room, a storm of Tsunade's punches as another table was kicked clean through the middle, in half. Anko flipped and dodged the attacks as she scored a few minor blows of her own. After a while the two halted before the other, the sweat apparent, their substantial breath obvious. Anko grinned, never gaining the chance to fight the legendary Sannin, but almost with a certain respect she stopped. I see you finally got what you wanted. Anko stated, rubbing her mouth filled with blood. It took some time, but I always do, she said with a certainty, dusting of her shoulder. Still can't fight worth a damn. I don't know how you could ever think to keep up with him. He's known to be hyper. She told me. You're too sluggish. You can barely last one night. Trust me. The bombshell told with a certain glee. Anko looked over and saw a collar on her Naruto. What have you done? I told you I have my ways. Tsunade told. Anko quickly thought of her options and needed her Naruto. She knew she was no match for her Hokage, but with this info knew her way to take advantage of the situation. If you don't let me have him, I will tell everyone about this. Anko told with a glee. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. Are you blackmailing me? I will tell. Not only that, but voice my concerns to everyone about your fun. You will lose your job and be a disgrace for what you've done. Tsunade grimaced in irritation for herself, scared of that thought. The thought worse than those of any other, even of inferior quality than the woman beside her. Turning back to a more prominent thought. I know we have been enemies, but from this new problem I have learned, and I can't help but see I have a problem. A problem whom we could both benefit. I know we share a common desire. A desire you seem to let flourish. Because of this, Tsunade, I think the two of us can help each other. If you want me to keep this secret, you have to let me do what I want as well. Ah, why do you make this so hard? Her eyes looked back and forth, feeling frustration more than ever. She knew her dreaded answer. If Anko gained her way out in the village, she would never have him again. The two stood there, hands on their hips. Tsunade's eyes were massive as her body never seemed to stop shaking with fury seeing Anko. Naruto watched the look of all-consuming, as their eyebrows narrowed at the other, their bodies filled with rage. She was facing the young woman. Tsunade always showed revulsion towards her enemy. But Anko began to spin around the Hokage and Naruto. I know we've had our differences, and I know even more, what we want. Deep down in your heart what your desire is, just so happens to be mine. She began to saunter around the woman, her lips spilling her thread of manipulation. I can sympathize with you. Burning in your core you can't help but let it blister your mind and body, her lips pressed to Tsunade's ear, soft as a whisper. Her words having the effect on the woman. It burns your brain in a seething rage, you seem to try and grasp it, but always by some means, and some way it loosens from grasp. Just when you think you have it, it runs away. Every day you feel dizzy with the desire and yet you can never let it detonate. It vexes you. Anko stared at Naruto, breathing became short, her hands began to shake. Would you risk to lose him? I'm here now and ready to speak to the elders about this. But if you let me join you we can have some fun together and share him. Double the amount of eyes and the time with him. I bet you can't be here at all stretches of the day. Doubles our chances, and I won't let anyone know. At that instant she had no option, with only moments of time. Against her better judgment turning her attention back to the purple-haired woman, knowing what she wanted more than her own breath. Fine. Anko smiled. Now what's with the collar? This collar helps me. As you can see his will is stronger than the utmost. That's our Naruto 1,000 beats of power a second, never a moment of breath, always on the move. If you promise to never speak to anyone about this you may indulge, any way you deem fit. Curious Anko acquired a few steps of her own forward staring at the hero of the leaf. It was bizarre to see him motionless like this, to see the hyper ninja stand still, while he was always on the move. As if this was a world of its own. Her hand rose with an uncertainty, almost an inch from his face. Closing the gap finally her fingers graced his skin. With a glee she let out a sigh, this desire left to burn, pure elation ran through her. Naruto stood as her fingers ran across his pecs, his body scorching to the touch. Finally she could feel that rage inside her flourish. Hand moving down to his abs lower and lower to his crotch and finally grabbed his massive. Taking a grab of the tree trunk, he didn't flinch, he didn't move a muscle keeping still. Anko couldn't believe the sight before her eyes. He's so damn big, and thick. Anko could only think of what it must felt to have him raging inside her. I know. 15 inches. Tsunade told from experience. And this is quite the device. Staring into his eyes she saw her desires laid out before her on a platter. As her only wish and deepest desire. That only wish she could never make herself came with an answer. Anko beamed with a devious smile. Now it's time for his loving. Naruto, why don't you give our new friend a royal welcome? He leaned forward grabbing her in an instant and kissing her. Naruto could see something in her eyes. Something in the mist of her pupils. Anko with a smile of her own. Naruto saw not one pair of eyes staring over him, but two. Anko couldn't help but grin by the sight, her brain a flutter of perverted thoughts. With her hand she ripped off her clothes, standing. Naruto took a breath as the beautiful known as Anko stood before him. Her more supple, tantalizing and bigger than any woman he had ever seen. Expect his Hokage of course. Gazing down to her slim waist and shapely legs altogether she was a beautiful goddess. Naruto was the one to fulfill her darkest fantasies, her deepest secrets hidden in the recesses of her perverted brain. The thought of keeping him for herself came to the fore of her mind. Turning around she stood before him. I think it's time you showed our new colleague some attention. Anko came before Naruto. Anko stood there for a moment relishing the image of Naruto before her. Those years she remembered dreaming of Naruto, licking his face as an excuse to get close. She saw him and damn did it feel good. You have no idea how long I've wanted you. She told him. Anko was no woman to wait. Now let me show you all of me. She said as she stood up reveling her bright pink for him. He could see she was wet with her dripping. You made me like this, Naruto, she said as she walked up to him, straddling him above his waist. She looked at him and smiled, leaning forward, kissing him desperately as she stuck her tongue into his mouth, searching his mouth. He returned the kiss, hungrily kissing her. She leaned back, smiling at him, seeing he deserved well from her. Leaning forward again, kissing him passionately like no one ever had received from the legendary Anko. Leaning back again, she grinned. I hope you're ready, Naruto, because I have been for so long. Sit down, she said. He did, sitting down on his bed, his standing straight up. She grabbed his, aiming it up to her pink. Slowly she lowered herself, impaling herself on his. Gingerly she lowered herself, feeling the head pop into her twat, causing a loud scream. His spreading her open wide, tears running down her face. She screamed as though was splitting her like no had ever. Oh Naruto, you sure have a legendary. She screamed as she took more of him, savoring the pain as the massive prick was doing what no had ever done to her, causing so much pain but also so much pleasure. After a few more inches she bounced several times, taking a few inches. He groaned. Her cunt felt amazing, hugging his penis. Nothing ever felt this good, he thought as he watched his villain bounce on his. Oh Anko, he said, unable to think as his was being squeezed tightly by her wet. Yay Naruto, I know you love it. She was bouncing up and down. He imminently leaned forward, grabbing her tits, wrapping his palms around the two globes. He couldn't keep his eyes away from the. She moaned as he played with her tits. He couldn't help but worship the amazing tits, spending what felt like forever squeezing her. Oh, you see, I knew you like 'em big. She felt her entire body was hitting a high. Oh Naruto, you naughty boy. He planted his feet on the ground and grabbed her thighs, lifting her up, and with all his power he thrusted up into her as he brought her down on him, his breaking past her cervix into her womb, fitting all 15 inches into her. She let out a pleasure-filled scream into the room as her back arched painfully as she came, her whole body trembling as she received the most intense orgasm she had ever known. The type of orgasm which had been haunting her dreams for some time. This was a feeling she would crave for the rest of her life, loving it. With no time for her to recover, he began painfully thrusting into her, not caring if it hurt her in the process. His pounding into her with a barrage of thrusts, unable to stop this feeling like just letting go, letting his lust him into Anko forever, which he gladly was doing. He drove his deep into Anko, over and over again, until Anko couldn't take it anymore. She screamed her way as her head flew back as Naruto her. Oh yes Naruto, me like I'm your bitch. I'm your bitch. She screamed, tears in her eyes, absolutely loving this. Naruto her to the pleasure high she never reached before. This only made him go mad for her, his hips thrusting madly into her with no rhyme or reason, just pure lust. Sweat covered their bodies as Naruto lost control, her with a blur, trying desperately to her to oblivion. Doing just that, the sounds of slaps filled the room, Naruto's body a blur as Anko's eyes crossed and her tongue lolled out of her mouth. She was receiving the she wanted desperately from the young man. And he gave it and then some. His fat smashing her womb, reshaping it to his likings. Anko had lost what was real as the orgasms flashed through her constantly, loving every second. She honestly thought she was going to pass out. At the very least her legs were beginning to feel like jelly. In fact every part of her body was beginning to ache, and yet Naruto never halted as he her. After half an hour of Naruto his sensei, he felt his swell nearing his imminent release. Anko, he gasped, as he didn't stop his mad thrusts. Yes, she asked as her tongue was currently lolled out of her mouth. Anko, I'm goanna cum, he stated. Do it Naruto. Make me your baby mama Naruto, give me you cum and make me pregnant with your thick spunk. She screamed. Hearing this turned him on. In no time his swelled, he didn't know why he did it but he couldn't help it. Leaning forward he planted his lips to hers, kissing her passionately as he still pounded her. Anko screamed in his mouth as her tightened on his, her hips bucked as she came all over his, her juices dripping down. Just as she came, he fired his first thick hot wad of jizz directly into her womb, hoping his cum would get her pregnant. His blasts of jizz were massive and hot, filling her. Into no time her womb was overflowing with his cum dripping down. Several of the sperm were on a mission, finding their way to her eggs, getting her what she wanted so badly from her Naruto. After a minute, Naruto fired his last blast into her. He and Anko basked in the glow of their orgasms. He looked at what was the goddess before him, and again he couldn't help himself. He leaned forward, latching his mouth on her erect nipple. "Oh my, you're such a horny Naruto, aren't you?" She giggled as Naruto was desperately sucking on her tits. He leaned back, staring at her. "Does Naruto want more?" she asked. "Yes," he stated. She stood up off him, his still rock hard slipping out of her. She walked away from him, then dropped down on all fours, pointing her up at him. "Well then, come and get it, Naruto," she said with a devious smile.